So what does Shabbat mean today? What does it mean when we're home all week? What does Shabbat mean? Well, this week's Torah portion is really the basis for the rabbis to determine what Shabbat is. This week's Torah portion, Vayakhel and Pekudei, it starts off by saying, don't violate the Sabbath, don't do work on the Sabbath. And then the rest of these two Torah portions talk about what work was done in order to make our portable temple, the Mishkan, the tent of meeting that we had as we were in the desert. And so the rabbis derive from that whatever is necessary in the building of our portable temple, those are things that you shouldn't do on Shabbat. And so if it meant build a fire to melt certain metals, well, you're not supposed to light a fire. And if it meant putting out a fire, you're not supposed to do that. And if it meant cutting things or writing things, well, they listed 39 different items, and the Talmud elaborates on that. And so work on Shabbat is those things. Don't rip, don't plant, don't cut, don't write, there's a whole section about taking things from a public area to a private area, or a private area to a public area. Those are the definitions from our tradition of what work on Shabbat means. Our Reform movement has taken a little bit different view of Shabbat. And we say Shabbat is very important. It's how we give holiness to time every single day of the week, not just on Shabbat. And Shabbat is a time for reflection. Shabbat is a time to, well, they give an analogy. During the painting of a portrait, an artist paints, but then takes a moment and steps back and takes a look. And even though the brush isn't on the canvas, a very important part of painting is taking place at that time. That's what Shabbat is, where we lay down the brush and we step back and take a look at the canvas. And so where a traditional view of Shabbat says, don't start a fire, which is what you do whenever you turn on or off an electrical switch, or whenever you start your car, that's starting a fire. And so traditionally, well, an Orthodox view would be don't drive, don't use electricity. A Reform view would say, well, this is a time for getting together with family. And historically, I mean, not particularly this week, but I remember like my grandmother lived an hour away. Getting in a car and driving to visit her on Shabbat. What a Reform ideal of Shabbat that is, being together with family. But I think that Shabbat has taken on a whole other twist. Make it close the doors, please. Today. And the whole other twist is how we look at time in general. Shabbat tells us that we need to pay attention to what's going on, and we can find holiness in any moment. I mean, think about it. Here we are most of us are in our homes. They are the spaces that we best suited to what we wanted. We spent an awful lot of effort to create this space to be the way that we want the space to be. And now we're in it. I tell people, even at the horrible times of their lives, during illness and during death, I tell them there's an awe of holiness there. It might not be a happy time, but there's a lot of holiness. Keep your eyes open. So here is a test as to whether or not you are living spiritually, Jewishly. It's a very, very simple test. Ask yourself, do I ever wish that this were all over with? Do you ever wish that, oh my gosh, I wish it were a week from today? I wish the sun would hurry up and set so we can get over this. If you're ever asking yourself that question, if you're ever feeling that, I only wish it were the end of the 14 days. If you ever wish that, that is not a Jewish view. That is not a Shabbat view of time. All time is precious. All time is precious. Every moment is precious. A view of Shabbat is to find the sanctity in these moments. God's presence is in your midst regardless of where you are. And if you can say, I appreciate being right here and right now and right with whoever it is that you're with, if you appreciate and find holiness in that moment, then you are really living the ideal of Shabbat. And if you can carry that to the rest of the week, wow, that's wonderful. We're going to take a moment to remember a few people. In particular, we're going to remember John Theodore Middick. That's David Middick's father. And we're going to remember Paul Schroeder. His Hebrew name is Peretz ben Abraham Yehudi. Both of them died during this last week. We add their names to the names of those who this week mark the anniversary of their yahrzeit. Sir Barry Simons, the husband of Sue Simons. Rose Baumstein, the grandmother of Barbara Dworsky. Helen Kaplan, the mother of Carol Schulman. David Scott, the father of Judith Scott. Samuel N. Gordon, the father of Nancy Gordon, and Louis Teller, the father of Barbara Gordon. Mickey Glazer, the dear friend of Marty and Stella Seifer. Elsie Luria, the mother of Ed Luria. Julia Nabb, the aunt of Sally Myers Goodman. Howard Gittleman, the brother of Alan Gittleman. A. Hermine Gordon, the mother of Marty Seifer. Edwin Lassman, the husband of Janet Lassman. Hyman Rabinowitz, the grandfather of Marcia Andrus. And Bessie Wasserman, the mother of Kenneth Wasserman. And now we're going to take a moment before Kaddish for you to say any names that are dear to you, or you can write them as a message.